Okay, did it. Everybody's coming in. Perfect. Welcome to Tuesday training for practitioners. Welcome, welcome everybody. We're live, we're streaming, we're recording. It's all good. Hi. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Lori. Who else is here today? A couple other people are here. Let's see. Anna's coming in. Is that good? Okay, great. Oh, I guess I left her waiting in the waiting room. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, and here's a couple more people. Mariella. Oh, good. Everybody's coming in for the cliffhanger. Hot dog. We we wrapped up we didn't really wrap up, but we concluded last week's practitioner training with a hearty cliffhanger. Might be our heartiest cliffhanger to date, actually. It was pretty fun for me. And I just keep thinking of Gary's comment as we were leaving that he wouldn't be able to sleep. So I hope that this week we're all sleeping well after today's Tuesday training. For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Gina Schatz. I'm your host. I'm here to pour into you. If you are a manual or a movement practitioner, you are in the right place. We're talking client work today. We usually talk functional anatomy, mechanics. We even do some professional development, some messaging with client work. And if you're here for the cliffhanger results, I'm also glad that you're here because that means you were here last week and we get to lean on what we accumulated in knowledge last week to solve the client puzzle. Yes, to resolve the hamstring pain. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. If those of you who are here need to be off camera, I get it. Mariella, I'm glad you're here. Nafia, welcome. I saw you both come in. You can still use the chat if you want to communicate. You can also come off mute. I prefer that we use our voices to communicate if you can. So if you're in a place to do that, come off mute and chat with me. And if last resort is chat, that's also good too. It just takes me a little minute to gather my wits to read the chat. And I do want to answer your questions, which is why I want you to connect with me here. So one of my favorite times of the week, Tuesday training for practitioners. I started us off last week with a client question, a query, a real life client, actually 2 weeks ago. And here's Gary coming in because the cliffhanger was just too much for him. So I love it. A real life client quandary, which was a client who came in who was positive that he had strained a hamstring or pulled a hamstring or done something to his hamstring. And I appealed to him and you that it was not his hamstring. So we were gathering data last week to try to figure out, well, what was it then if it wasn't the hamstring? Because it sure did feel like the hamstring, sure did sound like the hamstring. He sure did point to his hamstring and it wasn't the hamstring. So we're going to resolve that today before we wrap up. Cheryl's like, are you sure? Yes, promise, sure. We're going to get you the answer today for sure. Anna would not have it any other way. Can't do two cliffhangers on the same topic. She'd have my head. So we're going to get there. I know. And I'm really curious, like, what did you guys come up with in the interim? So before we get to the problem solving of the client work, let's just recap. What data points did I share with you last week? What was the functional anatomy that I really emphasized? Because I set you up for the solution, right? So what did we go over last week? We talked about, oops, excuse me, guys. Apparently I can't multitask and do the waiting room and questions. So we talked about tensile stress, talked about different types of tightness. We focused on tensile stress. Hey, Val, I'm glad you're here. We talked about alignment. We talked about the four curves of the spine. We talked about a couple things, and I was keeping us really streamlined, so I didn't squirrel too far off those topics. And everything that I shared with you guys was needed by me and by you to solve this client's quandary. And he did leave with it resolved. And follow-up also said that it stayed resolved. So who would like to give us a little recap, if you will, on what were the functional anatomy focus points that we trained on last week that are needed to complete this conversation? Anybody willing to jump in? Valerie, you're muted. Are you jumping in? Because I would love to hear what you have to say.
Joint action.
Okay, what did we talk about in joint action?
What happens on one side to look at the other, because we are dealing with the lever system.
Yes, that is a biggie on this one for sure. The lever system. So the whole body's designed for movement. The body's designed to move. The body's not designed to be stagnant. The whole body's design at every joint is a lever system, streamlined, right? There's reciprocal inhibition, there's 360 joints, etc. And every joint action has a muscle that contracts and a muscle that lengthens to create that action. Really need that one for this case study, for sure. Yep, we start there actually. Sometimes when I'm teaching joint actions, practitioners are like, eye roll, can we please get to the good stuff? That's the good stuff, you guys. That's what you need to solve the problem. I'm appealing to you again to get to lever systems and really see it in your mind's eye and then see it in their body and then use that to help you troubleshoot because it's a biggie. So thanks, Val, for bringing that back up too. What else did we cover last week by way of functional anatomy that added to the conversation? What do you got, Anna?
That stretching is not always the answer. Especially in the case of tensile strength where we've got a lengthening to excess in any event. And also for me, and we talked about it last week, it's really the origin and insertion, and a sort of in tensile strength, tensile tension, they're sort of at a maximum distance. If we can, if we know where origin is and if we know what insertion is and we know it's in a maximum tension, maybe there's an answer there.
Oh, good. Yeah, that I think helps also with the visualizing, like what's actually happening. We visualize the joint action. So we talked about our lumbar spine. And when we're all seated, like I am right now with my spinous processes touching the surface I'm leaning against, my lumbar spine is not in neutral alignment right now, which means that the muscles along my spine are in a lengthened position on the back of my spine, and the muscles on the anterior side of my spine are in a shortened position. And that's cool until we take it to the nth degree. And now we're in tensile tension. And in this client case, being locked in that position, and I try to use that word really lightly because I've had some feedback that doesn't resonate with everybody. But the idea here is that there's a difference in joint function and origin and insertion locations. There's a difference in the way it's designed and when things go awry. And the conversation we're in right now is when it's awry. So we need to know how the body's designed first so that we can understand how it even got into the trouble that it's in and what to do to resolve the trouble, which is always just take it back to how it's designed. And when we're troubleshooting because something's awry, it's awry. And we need to be open to all possibilities of what it could be, using the body's design as our foundation and our focal point to try to solve the puzzle. And they're always solvable. So right now, my low back is probably going to tolerate this for the time that we're together. It's no problem. But if I sat like this with my lumbar spine not in alignment and these muscles being lengthened on the posterior side of my spine and shortened on the anterior side of my spine, if I did that for 8 hours, now I'm in trouble because now I've done all kinds of things to my fascia and to the patterning and to the lack of movement and the alignment of the joints. So it becomes burdensome over time. As soon as we add weight bearing, we've accelerated that burdensome time. And as soon as we add weight bearing with movement, we've now complicated it because movement is complicated. Things wire from the brain very quickly to create movement. And in our case study, our client was moving and bearing weight. Yeah, awesome. Okay, what else did we get? What else did we bring with us from last week? Anybody?
He was also in, go ahead.
No, you, Val. You go ahead.
He was moving, bearing weight. You said he also was in improper posture. He was not in.
Yep. And so just using the anatomy to support us going into the case study, what that means is when the body's moving in its optimal alignment, there won't be pain. When the body's moving out of joint alignment, optimal alignment, and recruiting other muscles to make a movement look like it's happening, or when we are structurally out of alignment, which shots method practitioners know what that is about too. It doesn't even have to do with movement. we can just be out of alignment for a variety of reasons internally. So what we want to do as practitioners is really hone our visual assessment skills for external alignment, meaning where are the bones relative to each other? Is the joint in a neutral position from a starting point? And then build movement from there. And you don't have to be a movement practitioner for that to be important. I was a massage therapist doing that with folks because I was working hard for an hour, hovered over a table to fix all the problems, and then they stood up, put their shoes on, and walked out, and I almost had panic attacks. Like, you've literally just undid everything I did for you for the hour. That's not going to work for you between now and the next time I see you. We've got to do something about the way you're moving. So you don't need to be a movement practitioner per se, and you don't have to add movement work into your manual license. I don't want to confuse people to say you should do something. For example, I'm a manual practitioner in 3 different states. One of them requires I do movement, and the other one makes it illegal for me to do movement. So good luck with that, right? So I'm not saying to break your laws. I'm saying that we need to know what optimal movement is, whether we apply it or not to the work that we're doing. We need to be able to assess for our client if the way they're moving is causing the problem they came to us to do manual work for, if we're manual practitioners that don't do movement. And if you're a movement practitioner, you need to know if the movement happened under your watch that somebody went to a manual practitioner to fix. So either way, we got to know what neutral alignment is in our joints, what that looks like, what is the function that's happening, and are those muscles doing that? From an alignment perspective, the alignment comes first. All right, so one of the formulas we have in our academy is alignment, strength, function. A whole masterclass on that. You must be in alignment first to then work the lever system and contract the appropriate muscle, lengthen the opposite, and then put that into movement function, walking, running, squats, etc. So it's always alignment first. And even from a practical perspective, if you're a movement practitioner, let's say, for example, you're a personal trainer and your client's goal is to just bulk up, you're not really working on, the perfect downward dog or the most elegant Pilates form. You just want to, you're doing weight bearing. So that's your focus. Even in those atmospheres, the only way a muscle can optimally contract and gain is if the body's aligned first. Because if you're contracting a muscle on a misaligned form, misaligned framework, misaligned skeleton, it can't fully contract. So you'll end up working, your clients will end up working twice as hard to not get the gains that they've worked for. So we all get to know alignment. I'm appealing to all of us. We all get to know what alignment is, what it looks like, what the parts are that do the movement. And then when we're in land of it all went wrong, now we're in a different framework. Okay. And that's what we're at with this particular client. So alignment is a big deal for sure. And a couple of you came in while I was on my rant. Asanda, it's nice to see you. Welcome. Who else did I not say hello to? Gary, I'm not sure if I said hello to you. I was definitely talking about you though, because I know the cliffhanger was heavy for you. Okay, any other anatomy that we went over last week that you recall? These are all really important principles that help us solve the problem. You love my rants, Gary. I love that you love my rants. Thank you for egging me on. Anything else? Cheryl. Oh, we can't hear you. And you're not muted, Cheryl. What's going on? I see you talking. I know. Oh, you got to get the headphones. Okay, come back to us. Because I know that you probably got something big. We did talk so far about, I'll just recap. We talked about not everything needs to be stretched. There's 4 different types of tightness. We briefly went over them, but we really focused on tensile stress. And only contractile, only one of the types of tension, tightness in a muscle needs to be stretched. Go ahead, Cheryl. Can we hear you now? Not yet. Okay. That said, I'm going to add a little piece here. I'm going to just build on that, right, as we're solving this client case study. So while tensile stress does not need to be lengthened, stretched, or released, it is only one side of the joint. It is only one side of the lever. So I want you to start thinking when a muscle or muscle group is in tensile stress on one side of the lever, what's happening to the other side of the lever? We're going to dive into that next. Go ahead, Cheryl. What did you get from last week?
Well, I just remember you saying that 90% of the pain that is in the body is from somewhere else.
Yeah, hugely important, because we started our conversation last week with a client comes in completely positive that it was a hamstring, still a hamstring, always been the hamstring. Now it's in the low back. Please help me with my hamstring, because now the hamstring problem is moving to my low back. And what we know as body workers is that 90% of the pain, AKA symptoms, is referred from somewhere else. So there's only a 10% chance that hamstring is really the problem. So we can end up saving a lot of time by remembering that law. And we also get to message that to our client, because it's like, gosh, you know, I said I came in with a hamstring problem and this practitioner's, you know, not even looked at my hamstring. What the heck? So you could create doubt in your client by not messaging that to them as you move through in your assessment and your treatment plan. You do get to message that to them. Go ahead, Anna.
At this point, I want you to pause you there for a second, and maybe you can elaborate on that exact thing when the client comes in. So I had someone come in and they were adamant it was their IT band. 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 And nothing I could say changed that for her.
In that moment. So you're looking for messaging that would have changed
Well,
it?
I'm just wondering, you know, what do you do? You know, for me personally, it goes to, you know, my weakness, which is I'm not credible. So, you know, aside from my personal issues around it, but you don't have that wounding or, you know, whatever. But I'm just saying, what do you do in this case, or in a case when the client absolutely absolutely adamantly, and if you're not addressing my IT band, I'm not interested.
Cool. So first of all, Anna, that was an assumption on your part that I've never gone through that, because I absolutely have, which is why I can see right through you when you bring up that. And it's awesome that we know what our space is where we get to transform and grow, right? So if you know that a client's feedback is going to ignite something in you that's unresolved, then you get to resolve it so that's never ignited again. And that's always our work, whether we're practitioners or just people in the world, right? So it's okay that that's there and you'll resolve it. The way I resolved it is by knowing my anatomy inside and out, so much so that some of you do this to me when I misspeak, right? A couple months ago, I did a misspeak on one of our Tuesday trainings, just kept saying the wrong thing over and over again. You know, you get distracted, you're not paying attention, whatever. And those of you who know anatomy were like, she's saying the wrong thing, which is different than, is she saying the wrong thing? Because I thought it was this, but now I don't know if it's that. That's still not 100% knowing. Okay, so if that, so you get to be the expert. The way we build confidence is through knowledge and skill. So you got to know your shit. You got to know it, not in an arrogant way, but just know it enough. I know the IT band. I know where it is. I know what it does. I know the muscle that it attaches to. I know its role in life. I know how it responds to treatment because I've worked with it. I know the IT band. Does that preclude me from learning something new about it? No, I'm always open to learning new. We'll never know everything about the body, but what I know, I know. You can't change my mind on what I know. You can enhance what I know, but you can't tell me that what I know is wrong if I know it. And the way I know it is by studying it and working with it and studying with it more and working with it until I have confidence around IT band, for example. Okay. So you get to do that too. We all get to do that. Know your stuff, practice your stuff, make mistakes, be messy, go back to what you didn't know, fill in the gap, practice it again. Boom, you got it. Okay. That's a process. And I also know some other laws about the body, which tells me that 90% of the pain is coming from somewhere else. Cool. And I also know that the IT band is a tendon. And I don't want to mess with connective tissue. So I don't care who it is telling me that I should release the IT band. We're gonna politely agree to disagree if that's all we do. And I am going to sleep well at night. Not that they're still in pain, but that I didn't promote their pain. If I'm in the business of resolving their pain, I cannot be asked to do something that I know is going to promote their pain. You can't enroll me in that. I can still be disappointed that they're in pain, but I know that I am clear from not contributing to it. But what I'd rather do is resolve it. So then I get some message so that I can have an opportunity to resolve it. And that looks like exactly what we just said. My dear client, I believe you that that's where your pain is. I 100% believe you. You acknowledge them, let them be right. And then, just like me, be open to new ideas. Because that's a tendon that is so largely responsible for this relationship between your hip and knee, my strong knowing and instinct tells me that that wouldn't A, solve your problem, and B, could make it worse. The other reason that I don't want to start there is because I know that 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else. It's based on science. I didn't make up that number. I was trained to know that number. And I really want to get you out of pain. Right? So you acknowledge them, you give them data, and you give them your heart. If they're still not in, they're just not your client. They're just not your client. And in a treatment setting, if that happens, it's happened to me, I think maybe 2 times, where I've actually said this. I hear you that that's what you want me to do. And I've given you my reasons why mechanically I don't think that's the answer. And I don't need to be right about it. And I don't need to make you wrong about it. But what I do need to do is be ethical in my practice. And I cannot ethically do what you're asking me to do and not cause more pain. And I'm just not willing to do that. So you just basically given them more data and more heart, and they're still right. You still acknowledge them, you still give them data, and you still show them your heart. And I don't need to be wrong or right about that. I want to get you out of pain, and I don't want to cause more. And I know, because I know mechanics, I know that could cause more pain. Should not be releasing, stretching, rolling, deep tissue, anything to IT. Like, just don't freaking do that. Okay, guys? Okay. Anna, does that support you?
Yeah, I think it's not being able to speak confidently, because I'm still doubting, my own level of knowledge. Although while I'm hearing you talk about the IT band, I'm like, yeah, of course, yeah, the glute max, right, and tendon, and where, like all of that stuff. But I guess it's just lacking. What you said is just lacking the knowledge, confidence.
Right. So here's what happens when we don't think that we're speaking confidently, but we know something and our words are not matching our knowledge, when we're in that internal conflict, what's usually happening is that we are right about the data, and then our internal voice is making us wrong. And then we need to write the wrong voice that doubles down on us as we get confident and outspoken. And now we're in a right-wrong arm wrestle with ourselves. It has nothing to do with anatomy. It has nothing to do with the client. We are at war. We might as well not even be in session with someone if we can't get out of our own way long enough to be in the conversation with them. So the work then is on the internal voice, right? Like, every time you doubt yourself, you got to take yourself. You don't have to do anything. There's me getting into my bossy mode. I would, and I have taken myself to task on, is that true? And there's a whole exercise, which I can give you. I can give it to you during group training on Thursday, Anna. You get to really rewrite. All get to. It's not a mandate. You get to rewrite the crap in your brain that takes you out of the game. Because it's only your ego trying to preserve your safety. It's not supporting your vision on what you're up to right now, which is solve complex problems.
Actually, for me, it's making sure that I please the client. And I know I don't want to hurt them, but I don't want them to leave unpleased, is the wrong word, but
Yeah, well, that's all different stuff though, right? So like, I want to please the client too. And the way I'm going to please them is by getting them out of pain, not by being liked. Right? Don't get me wrong. I love it when people like me. I'm human. I have blood in my veins, but my main intention, remember we talked intention and commitment in group training last week. My main intention is not to be liked. My main intention is to get them out of pain. If they happen to like me along the way, that's awesome. But I'm not going to sacrifice getting them out of pain so that my ego can be stroked for the hour while they're there. crazy selfish to operate that way as a practitioner. I'm not calling you selfish, I'm calling the mode, right? When we care about being liked more than we care about doing good in the world, it's a selfish viewpoint. It's not a worldly, generous viewpoint to want to be liked instead of do good work, create amazing results. Okay.
Can I just add a point here?
Yeah, Gary. I haven't heard your voice in a while, Gary Rosen. I like it. Come on in.
So sometimes when you're butting heads with a client like that, and you've given them information which they're not downloading, and they don't understand maybe the anatomy of what you're saying, but that 90% thing is pretty strong, they may go away and think about all this stuff and come back. And that's happened to me. They go, yeah, you were right. You did this. It all makes sense now. Thank you. And then you've got a client for a long time.
Because you held your ethics and morals. I love it, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will gain more respect by being in your integrity than you will in people pleasing. Every time. Doesn't mean it happens instantly. And I love your share, Gary. Sometimes it takes a minute because, if integrity was as popular as we'd like it to be, we wouldn't all question it when we're faced with that. We wouldn't all be rubbed when someone's being in their integrity and giving us, honesty. Asanda, do you have your hand raised? Do you also have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a point too, because I just I've had this same kind of thing happen before, and I just always go to the real problem and then poke it pretty hard and it's like give them the sensation and be like, there, like, how do you feel right there? Oh, it's really tight. And then I can just say, like, we need to get that out so that this other thing feels better. So just kind of like giving them the sensation of like what really is tight before I start like in with the educating process. I don't know. It always works. Like they need that sensation to recognize because you're not always feeling the contractile tightness.
You're a manual practitioner, Asanda?
Yeah.
Yeah. Spoken like a true manual practitioner. Let me just poke at you for sure. And yep, absolutely. And in this particular client case, it's not contractile tension. So we don't want to release it. Right. So that's one of the extra little layers on this particular case study, that tensile stress is the name of the game.
I think what I'm trying to say is I'll go to the contractile part and poke it and just be like, look, this is what we need to release over here.
Perfect. Because I actually did that. What do you think would be the contractile muscle in this particular case study?
Quadricep?
Quadriceps is on the table. Anybody else?
You said he was complaining of hamstring, but what about rectus abdominis? Because that's the opposing muscle.
Opposing muscle of what, Val?
Multifidi. Sure.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm going to go for glute max because
surprise, Anna.
She has a love of
I love all you guys, but I can support this because the hamstring is a synergist to the glute max.
Okay.
So
it's also synergist to hamstrings.
Yeah. Well, isn't that what I said? What did I say?
You said glute max. But multifidi, the synergist didn't list glute max, it listed hamstrings.
Okay, so
you might have found something I didn't find, which is awesome because, yeah.
Okay,
and then I'll throw in Soaz.
Well, just like what, as a wild card? What the heck? You got to qualify that.
Yeah.
Soaz. Okay, so if the hamstrings are synergist to the glute max, or the other way around, the glute max, and hamstrings kind of work together in gait for sure.
Right.
And the synergist or the lever system to the glute max is the Soaz. So I'm not throwing it as a wild card. I'm just saying, Maybe there's something going on with the glute max and the psoas that's contributing to this intense pain. Because he said lower back. Remember, he also said lower back. It was moving up to his lower back. That's all I got.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my thought was the hamstring is in tensile stress, correct? I mean, because it is lengthened, which also the lower spine muscles are also in tensile stress, right? So it's almost like they're stuck in that position. In my mind, I'm going, well, they're not releasing. So if he's feeling it in his hamstring, it's not his hamstring, and that muscle's unable to contract because it's so stressed or it's so stretched, right? You got to be able to, you got to have room to contract, and he's not, that muscle's not able to. The lever system would say that the quadricep is contracted because the hamstring is lengthened, right? So I don't know, in my mind, I went over it a million times, like maybe it's the quad that is stopping the hamstring from being able to contract because it is already so contracted. The quadricep is contracted.
Okay.
So they're kind of stuck, but I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I like the way you thought that out, Cheryl, for sure. Anybody else?
I was in a quandary when you said that it was the right side. So I didn't know if you meant right as in lateral or medial, or if you meant the right side of the body. But which multifidi, was it the right or the left that was overstretched? So I didn't quite have enough information to try and get a full picture in my head. Does that make sense?
100%. Yep. So let me give you the points of his intake that matter, right, to this case study. And what I would love for you guys to create is already knowing before you have to go poke around, right? So like before, and you get to practice this, right? You don't, like, out of the gate, don't expect yourself the first time you do an intake to already know and then magically you have all the answers.
Good.
You get to grow there, right? Like, especially shots method practitioners, like you guys get to create this. This is your vision for, maybe not next month, but by graduation, you should already be starting to have this, okay? And then obviously you get to keep practicing after that. I want you to be able to see the mechanics in your body, in your mind's eye, in their body, just like we talked about a minute ago, like what's actually happening, what is the lever system doing, what's the alignment like, what does that mean to the muscles if the alignment looks like this versus like that. Listen to everything that they're telling you, use your anatomy knowledge, use the laws of the body, and already be 80% sure you know what's up before you even bring them in to work on them. I'm talking like by the time when you're talking, their intake should tell you everything you need to know, right? And we haven't talked intakes, I don't think, here at Tuesday Training. We haven't talked about it yet in this year's mastery track either. But I will tell you this, that and I can absolutely show you my client notebook, right? And if you've seen me as a client, you know this. As I'm writing and we're just chatting, you're sitting on a chair and I'm sitting on a chair and we're just chatting, I'm already writing out on the right-hand side what I know the culprits to be. We know this is probable cause in our community, and I'm already writing out what they need. I can tell by what's being shared. Then I bring my client in and I measure them. Shots Method has its own system of measurements, which just confirms and clarifies and adds to what I already knew. By the time they get on the table, it's like 10 minutes. Because I already know what's up. Most of the work is on the intake and your knowledge coming into that intake. I don't want you guys, what do I want? I want you all to, when you're working with people, to spend most 99% of your effort zeroed in on the solution, because you already know it going in, not searching, looking, poking, prodding. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's move him here. Let's put our thumb in there. Let's dig our elbow in here. I want you to not be using your client's body as a petri dish. I want you to already know what you're going in for. Does that take practice? Absolutely. And that's where we're headed. That's why I will be here with you till the end of time to get you there. Doesn't mean it'll happen this week, but that's where we're headed. Okay.
So we
So
get another year just to accomplish that?
yes, my gal. Yeah. Once you're in, I told you, graduation's graduation, but you're mine for life. So yes, you absolutely get to keep practicing. So with that in mind, here's what I'm going to tell you that you need to know from this person's body to be able to know what muscle it was. Because this is all I knew from this person's body to know what the first step was. Okay. And I'll tell you exactly what I did with him. So this is a hypermobile constitution.
Ooh.
Right?
Okay.
At the gym, working out, doing squats with a weighted 20-pound backpack to add more weight, to bulk up more. And during squats, the very first sensation that he had that was mild was a low back something. Undescript, just a low back something. I felt something in my low back while I was doing squats, he said, literally word for word. So he looked at the person that was working out with him and said, "Are you seeing anything?" And the person he was working out with said, "Yeah, it looks like your posture and your low back is off." But didn't offer a way to remedy that, just something looked off. Again, not practitioners. So to a lay person, if your back posture doesn't look great, that's saying something, right? So the back spine posture didn't look great. The first sensation was in the low back. Weighted 20-pound backpack, activity function was squats. The next day, right hamstring. So that when you said you didn't know what I meant by right, Valerie, it was right hamstring pain. Right hamstring pain went on for about 10 days, I think.
The whole group?
Just right hamstring is what the client said.
Okay.
I think I pulled my right hamstring, and now it's starting to cause a low back problem. Was literally written on his appointment. Okay, and I promise you, you have everything you need to solve the problem. Okay, so what muscles are under tensile stress?
Hamstring. And
Lower back
the
muscle.
paraspinal muscles.
Yeah.
Paraspinals in the low back. So from a structural perspective, and Shots Method practitioners, I'm putting you on the hot seat right now. From a structural perspective, between those two, hamstrings and lumbar paraspinals, which are more critical to structure?
Lumbar.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Alignment of the axial skeleton has to be intact for there to be no pain. Okay, so we're focused. So it would be tempting to focus on the hamstrings because they are under, part of them are under tensile stress. The other part are under contractile because remember they're a biaxial muscle. And he told us that's where the pain was, has been, continues to be, and he's sure that he's self-diagnosed a hamstring pull. Super tempting to go there. But we know that 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else. And we know as Shots Method track practitioners that the lumbar spine is more critical of the two.
For sure.
Okay, so we're focused now on the lumbar spine. What are we seeing in the lumbar spine? What's happening there?
Tensile stress in the multifidi is what you had said. That's what you found.
Well, we know that the lumbar curve was not neutral.
Right.
He had
And it would have been overstretched with that weight. That makes sense.
Yep, he had slight flexion in his lumbar spine and he was bearing weight, which means that if he had slight flexion in his lumbar spine, so again, I'm going to put more, oh boy, the sunlight, you guys. I've been being chased by the sunlight. So and I'm not complaining, by the way. So his lumbar curve naturally would have this type of a shape to it. He's in squats and his spine looks like this at the lumbar, and he's weighted 20 pounds and moving. Squats, hip flexion, hip extension, hip flexion, hip extension. Okay, So what muscles are involved here?
Paraspinal.
Paraspinals.
What else?
Quadratus laborum.
Say it, Gary.
Quadratus laborum.
QL, yeah. What else?
Glute.
In a squat, I would say the glutes.
Here, guys,
Oh,
don't
up
go
there.
away.
Oh.
Don't wander.
Okay.
So,
Stay on the-
Okay.
What, what, Lori?
Anterior
yeah, I was gonna say,
serratus
no,
posterior.
second guess it.
I was going to add the obliques, especially the external obliques.
Why?
Well, because they do wrap, they're not they're on the side, and so they do affect that area for sure.
Yeah, but they do rotation.
Wow. Right. They do rotation though.
And lateral flexion.
We're doing this action. So remember, you're going to see the muscles, you're going to see the lever system working, and you're going to name the muscles that are doing the job. You're going to name the muscles that are supposed to be doing the job, and you're going to name the muscles that are under duress if the alignment's not present.
Okay.
And whether you're a SHOTS method practitioner or not, you know his alignment's not optimal because you see that his lumbar spine looks like this in his squats. His friend saw it. His non-trained non-practitioner friend saw it, right?
Would you go down into like just because of where your hand is, like the aponeurosa, like that, or is?
And what about the other side, the rectus abdominis?
Yeah, that's what I thought. The rectus
Oh, but she's
abdominis
saying
is not
just
engaged.
right there. Are we talking the other side of the lever also?
What about TVA?
What
Mhm.
about it?
Well,
yeah, it wraps around.
yeah, it definitely wraps around.
There's a lot
question.
that attaches there.
We do. Question.
That's
What muscles hold the spine in this alignment?
The erector spinae and your paraspinals.
What else?
Soaz stabilizes.
Abdominal.
Yes.
Yes.
Soaz.
Gary from
Thank
the
you, Gary.
void.
Mhm.
Gary from the void.
Someday
Soaz.
I'll get my camera fixed and then you'll see me.
That'd
Oh,
be
is
so
that it,
nice.
Gary? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a camera.
Oh, I
That'd be
thought
so
it was
nice.
because of your location. Great. Well, we love having you here. So we'll take your voice over nothing.
Thanks.
Okay. So psoas and paraspinals, which, by the way, guys, spine, paraspinals, spine, psoas, psoas, QL, paraspinals, spine, psoas, QL, paraspinals. They're like all right there. They're all right here. They're here doing this.
Mhm.
Okay. So psoas is doing stabilize. I have Murph hanging upside down here. It's super disrespectful. Sorry. So psoas is stabilizing the spine's alignment in its intrinsic action. What does psoas do in its phasic action?
Flexion.
Flexion of the hips.
Flexion.
Of
The hips, hip joint.
flexion of the hips. Are we doing flexion of the hips here? Is this lab
Yes.
doing flexion?
Yes.
Oh,
And the QL, the psoas can do both basic
Great.
and intrinsic.
The Soaz is like, what the
See, but I said the psoas coming up from the glute.
You
hell? But
did.
said it
You
with a
did.
question mark, Anna.
Mhm.
said it with a question mark and you said it related to the glutes.
All right, I take away my question marks from now on.
Yes, good. Okay, so if we have psoas, so now we know the action is contraction. We're going back to the laws of the body. We're not letting symptoms steer us away. We're not trailing all the connective tissue and how all the muscles all might be part of it. You don't want to try to like sort through 600 muscles. You want to go boom, right to the action so that you can focus on what you're doing. Okay, so so we go alignment, strength, function. This alignment is askew. This alignment is askew. It's not optimal, which means, what did we say was in a lengthened position?
Vinyls.
Lumbar
Paraspinals.
Paraspinals. And what's in a shortened position?
Well, rectus abdominis and psoas then.
Soaz.
yeah.
Soaz, because we're still working on the alignment, right? So Rectus abdominis is a juicy muscle and he's not an alignment muscle. So we're on muscles that do alignment. We're on a structural issue. He's having a structural issue. So it's alignment muscles, right? So psoas is now in a shortened position. If a muscle's in a shortened position, can it lengthen and contract freely?
No.
Oh, my heavens.
Hmm.
And no, it cannot. And what action was he asking his body to do?
Exactly that.
Exactly that. He was exactly asking his freaking psoas to lengthen and contract, lengthen and contract, lengthen and contract. And he couldn't do that because these muscles were weighted in a tensiled position. Not just bad posture, 20 pounds of weight in a lengthened paraspinal position, which means these were tensile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how could these tensile stressed paraspinals cause hamstring symptoms?
Because it's a synergist to the paraspinals. And it's also the opposite of flexion. It's extension of the hip. So it was trying to take over. It was trying to do its job, and it wasn't.
Slow down, Val. Slow down, Val. So hamstrings are synergist to paraspinals?
That's what I found. I tried to find the spot where I found it to dig deeper on that, and I couldn't find it to go digging deeper.
Well, they're helpers to Anna's glute max.
Yeah, they're helpers to Anna. The upper fibers are. The lower fibers are taking care of what the knee's doing because
right.
hamstrings are working too, right? We're squatting. We have knee flexion and hip flexion. But from a structural perspective, we're sacrum centric. Schatz method sacrum centric. Cool. So why would a tensile stressed paraspinal group create hamstring symptoms?
Because it attaches at the SI and the lumbosacral joint ipsilaterally, and part of its job is it also will in action elevate the pelvis at the lumbosacral joint, and it's the largest muscle of the lumbar region.
What are you talking about, Valerie? What muscle?
Multifidi.
Okay, so multifidi attaches at the SI joint. How does that cause hamstring symptoms?
It's on the other side of the lever.
Other side of what?
Other side of the hip. I'm sorry. My apologies, not the lever.
Are the multifidi a hip muscle?
And it's the opposite direction. It does extension where psoas works on flexion.
Wait. So now you're whoa.
Okay. I mean, I've got this big picture, but I'm not sure how to tie it together.
That's fine. That is absolutely fine. We all do. And so my intention for all of you is to, rather than spin too fast and then lose yourself in the sauce, follow yourself. You are the spoon stirring the sauce. Okay. So when you say that hamstrings are a synergist to multifidi, is that true?
That's why I was trying to flesh out and I couldn't.
Then don't go with it. Don't make up shit. Because then you become the sauce. Okay. Okay. So do we all agree that the lumbar paraspinals are under tensile stress? Great. What did that do to the psoas?
Shortened it.
Yeah, made it really difficult to do its job. What muscle had the most burden on it? He's doing squats.
So it had the most burden.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the psoas.
I think the psoas too.
How come? Yeah, how come?
Because it was asked
to flex. Yeah, it had to actively continue to flex in a contracted state.
And
with all that weight.
The lower back where the paraspinals were not at the party.
So it was having to do both its job phasically and intrinsically?
It would have had to do its job intrinsically anyway, because if you have an aligned lumbar curve, psoas is working intrinsically. Right. If you do not have a balanced optimal lumbar curve, like I don't right now because I'm leaning back, my psoas is not working intrinsically. That's a problem for people who sit, for sure. Or who just go into hip flexion for function. So the psoas in a squat has to work intrinsically and phasically. And in this particular instance, his intrinsic job was not only hindered because of poor alignment, it was burdened by 20 pounds of weight in poor alignment.
Mhm.
And it was literally the number one phasic action that was being asked of the body. Hip flexion, hip extension, hip flexion, hip extension. Psoas contract and lengthen, psoas contract and lengthen, while you're under duress being held in a shortened position.
And stabilizing.
And trying to stabilize, right?
And all of it.
So going back to our formula and the alignment that I told you guys about, when the body is not in alignment anywhere, when the body is not in optimal alignment, can the muscles at that joint area contract fully?
No.
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 So there's no way that he could have had all that phasic action available in that psoas, because it wasn't even aligned to be able to contract without the tensile stress. So that's how we do the math. Like, oh, the psoas is this poor guy. Psoas, pobrecito. Mm-hmm. So while
so he couldn't do the job properly because of the alignment, and then adding the weight added to the dimension of stress, correct?
Yep. It added an inability for the psoas to lengthen and contract, which it needed to do the phasic action, and the lumbar spine wasn't in alignment at the same time, which we always know has the potential to create pain. And he was weighted, which means the tensile stress was tension. Where did he say he felt his first sensation?
Low back.
Lower
Low
back.
back.
Low back.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Low
right.
back.
You're right.
And
Okay.
it was because I'm looking through my notes real quick about tensile. It's because, like, if he hadn't have added weight, there's something about the weight, right?
Hmm?
Max pulled.
Well,
more
it may
weight,
not
more
have
weight
been, it
on
may
the
not
body
have been
out
a
of
severe
alignment.
problem,
Okay.
but it would still would have been a problem.
Still would have been a problem, but it wouldn't have instantly given him symptoms the next day after his workout.
Got it.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through my notes about tensile stress.
Which in a way, right, is kind of a gift. I mean, if you're going to screw up that much function in your body, at least let me know right away so I can tie it back to the function.
Mhm.
Right? 'Cause I knew I needed to know what did he do? What was his activity? What was he up to? And because it was tensile stress, because it was weighted, and it happened while he was working out, he got a sense of it, and then next day right away got symptoms. He could take me back in his history back to that moment, and I could then start seeing what muscle was doing what muscle was supposed to be doing what, and what was the problem for those muscles.
Gina, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking, because he's doing squats, of course, all this whole huge structural issue, but he did identify the hamstring. I'm not taking away, I mean, obviously, everything we've discussed is correct, but the lower fibers of the hamstring, wrap around the patella, come around,
Well,
and
not the patella, but the knee joint.
the knee
Hamstring,
joint.
yeah.
Sorry, not the patella. The patella just sits on top, but
Yeah.
come around to the fibula, can't speak. And so when he's doing squats, and coming back up, like there's a lot of push there on the knee joint. So why did you not ask him, or maybe you did, in his hamstring pain, was it down by his knee or was it up? I'm just curious about that.
What difference would it make for you, Anna?
I guess maybe it would have given some validity to the fact that, if it was lower down, if his hamstring pain was lower down, that it wouldn't change the solution, but just maybe giving some validity to his saying that it was the hamstring.
I don't need to give him any more validity. He told me that's where his pain is. I validate that. But I don't need to focus there, so I'm not even going to focus my questions there. Yeah, I'm going to get super efficient. Yeah. So when we're doing intakes, you want to always ask questions that the answer means something to you functionally. There's an implication to the answer. Don't just randomly ask stuff, right? I'm not saying that I'm in my teacher mode already on the group training that you'll have on intakes, because we get to do intakes, we get to do them in a way that supports you to create a treatment plan for sure. Given this intake and what I have shared with you that I knew going in, what muscle do you think I focused on first?
Soaz, because it's stuck in contraction.
Because it is full on freak out. It can't do its intrinsic work. It can't do its phasic work. It is weight bearing. It is load bearing. It is close to the sacrum. It is full on freak out for sure. How did the hamstring in full on freak out create, how did the psoas in full on freak out create hamstring symptoms that were that strong?
Because its antagonist was the hamstrings and the glutes. Curious why he didn't have glute pain.
Most people don't contract their glutes anyway, and the duress was on his lumbar spine, not on his hips.
Okay.
Yep. So Anna, there's your friend, the glute max and the hamstrings, right? So coming out of a squat, so going down into a squat, what muscles contracting?
Soaz.
Soaz and who helps him?
Hamstrings.
No.
No.
What muscles contracting?
Soaz and glute max.
No.
Quad.
What muscles?
Quad.
Which one?
Oh
Quad.
yeah, the quad, yeah.
Which
Oh,
one?
the quad.
Rectus femoris.
Yep. Soaz and his main helper is rectus femoris, right? Contracting, going down. What's the opposite side of that lever? What's the opposite side of rectus femoris and psoas?
Hamstring.
Hamstring.
Mhm.
And
Glute max.
Glute.
max. Hamstring, glute max is first and then hamstring. Yep. So coming out of the squat, I'm going into extension of the hip. I'm from flexion of the hip to extension of the hip. My glute max and the hamstrings, right where they meet the glute max, upper fibers of hamstrings have to click in for me to come up from that squat. That's why they're booty builders, if done in alignment. So you guys were asking, well, why didn't his glutes hurt? Because he was in this shape. He was in this shape. There was no glute max.
So it was inhibited.
The glute max couldn't possibly do its job if the body alignment looked like this. It was all hamstrings that were bringing him up into hip extension.
Right, so I thought you were going to go to, I recognize that the glute max was not, because I've been thinking about it all week, the glute max was definitely not working. So I thought you were going to go to what was prohibiting the glute max from working, but I understand you needed to go to the structural because it's alignment first. I got it.
Yay, Anna, you got it. Yeah. So the hamstring was doing a lot of heavy lifting for muscles that he had no business doing heavy lifting for, because he was just there to support staff. And the main guys were like in the back room arguing. So was there discomfort in his hamstrings? Undoubtedly. But I'm not going to start there because that's not where the problem started. And that took us right up to the end of the hour, the top of the hour. Isn't that exciting? You guys don't look excited. I thought this would be like...
It's still a cliffhanger.
I'm writing it down.
Valerie,
Do you remember real quick what you said? And if not, I'll go back and listen to it. You said if it's a structural issue, I wrote alignment issue, but I don't think that's what you said. If it's a structural issue, it's a...
I don't know. Did you hear me say sacrum centric?
Yeah. It was, I'll go back in and find it on the replay.
All right.
I wrote that down too. So Lori, I think the thing was that he's having a structural issue because his lumbar is not in its proper alignment.
Oh, and there's the alignment issue. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why. Okay, got it. That clicked. Thank you. So it's
So how did you treat him? What did you do?
Really,
That's
so
next
as
week.
start with.
Oh, is this another cliffhanger?
Soaz is hard
That's
to
what I
read.
said. Yeah,
Gary,
Really
that's your
confusing.
cliffhanger because you need the treatment
yes,
plan.
yeah. Stay
Should we do
tuned. Stay tuned.
cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Here's what would be really good. I would like you all to tell me, now that you know what muscle was under the most burden and how the hamstring symptoms showed up as much as they did, I would love for you guys to think through, what would your treatment plan be? Right? You might be a manual practitioner or a movement practitioner. You might have different tools available to you, but we're all getting to the same place. So I would love it for you to think through, now that you understand exactly functionally what went wrong and what he needs to remedy that, what would your treatment plan be? And then let's come back next week and compare notes. I'll tell you exactly what I did, and I'll also feed into you and what you did, what you came up with, and whether I would think that that would get you the results that you're looking for. I'll absolutely do that. Not like a way of testing you or quizzing you. I don't mean it from an arrogant place, but come up with that. What would you do? Let's say that you are listening to the intake. He is your client. You're like, I remember this is exactly Soaz. I can tell it's Soaz, it's rectus femoris, it's lengthened paraspinals, it's tensile stress, the hamstrings, no wonder. What would you do then? Because I want you to be able to come up with your own treatment plans for sure. Okay? How's that? Is that a deal? Sort of a lighter cliffhanger, but still like, a work in process. A work in process. Does that support you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. I would love to hear what you come up with, because that really matters more than you hearing what I did. How you come up with it is what matters. Okay, so there we go. We know exactly what's on deck for next week. Beautiful. Some of my favorite moments are spent with you guys on Tuesdays. Thank you so much for showing up and contributing the way you do. I really look forward to next week. And until then, continue to do amazing work in the world.